And I think we are live. What's going on, Locked On MLB fans? I am Sean Sears. I am the host of the Locked On Cubs podcast, and joining me is Lucas Smith. He is the host of the Locked On Cardinals podcast. Lucas, what's going on, man?
Well, I was hoping I'd be able to talk about a Series win for St. Louis, but nevertheless, get to talk baseball. So I'm doing good. I'm happy to be here. How are you doing, Sean?
I'm doing good. I'm a little bit more excited because the Cubs officially picked up the series win. I was really nervous, though, because Kimbrel's been, I think as most people in baseball know, pretty rough. But he looked okay there. Overall, though, this series, I can't say either one of these teams really looked fantastic. It felt like both teams just took advantage of each other's mistakes. But for you, I know this is the first time you've gotten a really good look at the Cardinals, obviously 5 games with the Cubs. They've been dealing with, obviously, COVID. What was kind of your take on this series? I guess what are some of the things you were looking forward to coming into, and what are some of the things you're worried about coming out?
I was really looking forward to Jack Flaherty start today. We knew that he wasn't going to start till Wednesday. I was just looking forward to see how the offense was going to translate after a pretty decent showing at the White Sox, and see how they were going to translate into 5 long games at Chicago. 5 games in 3 days is never easy. And just see how the Cardinals, how Schilt was going to manage his bullpen. And I thought Schilt kind of mismanaged a little bit here and there. I think that, he left some guys in too long and vice versa. But coming out of it, I think, 17-day layoff, there's not too much to complain about as a Cardinal fan. The pitching, the bullpen was lights out, I think, in the series as a whole. And the offense had some inconsistencies. But, I mean, at the end of the day, it's 17 days layoff. It's going to take more than 5 games to get back on your feet. So.
Definitely. No, I mean, this is – you guys have quite a bit of schedule to obviously make up with the doubleheaders coming right now, obviously with the Cubs. But, I mean, it's just going to be – it's going to be a grind, especially for you guys these next couple of weeks with the Cardinals having to kind of put together the season on the fly in a 60-game season. So I'm sure it'll be interesting. But, yeah, Jack Flaherty, obviously – when he's pitched, I know this is only his second start since opening day. Dude's been lights out. You look at his numbers. I know Cubs fans will probably take a little offense to this, but I mean, he has been just as dominating as anyone has in baseball. I think even the last year, I don't think I've seen a pitcher dominate quite like that since maybe Jake Arrieta in 2015. Yeah. He's been incredible. Obviously, we only got to see him for a couple innings, but what did you see out of Flaherty that you liked?
I mean, you saw that the stuff is still there even after the close to 3.5-week layoff. But, I mean, he just lost a couple batters to walking too much. And the Cardinals staff as a whole walked too many batters this week, rather, to really, they shot themselves in the foot, I think, a little bit. But, Flaherty, you knew he wasn't going to go much more than 50 pitches because of the 3.5-week layoff. So I think this was almost literally like a bullpen side session for Flaherty, even though it was a real game situation. And I think at the end of the day, you just got to move on with a 45, 50 pitches of what you saw. But yeah, and interesting fact, you bring up Arrieta's 2015 season. I was at the last game he lost in that regular season, which was the Cole Hamels no-hitter. I was at that game. So I saw his last loss of 2015 and before he went on that remarkable stretch.
That's crazy. Yeah, it's great that a lot of Cubs fans point to that moment in 2015 as like the time where things really started to change for that Cub team. Because I think getting no hit by Cole Hamels was pretty rough, and especially because I mean, obviously Cole Hamels very good, but was kind of not so great coming in. But I think that was also his last start as a Philly too. So just a lot of weird things with that start. But yeah, right. And baseball can be weird. We saw that a bunch this week, at least in the series so far. I know Anthony Rizzo, his on-base streak of 32 consecutive games of getting on base ended in that first part of the no-hitter. But he had 2 or 3 balls he just smashed and went straight to, I think Dylan Carson made a great play and I think center field at that point. A couple good plays on some rockets he hit. But then you look at a guy like Colton Wong who couldn't not get on base this week. I know him and Tommy Edman seem to give the Cubs a ton of trouble. They're just very pesky hitters, great contact hitters. I guess what have you liked out of those guys so far?
I think one thing I liked about Wong that he really changed from the weekend, because at the South Side, I think he had 1, maybe 2 hits. But you saw in today's game, both games today, he went the other way twice. One on a double that eluded Schwarber's grab and a couple other singles. I think he was 3 for 3 or 4 for 4 in the first game today. So they just seem to be hitting the ball all over the place and not pulling up, not trying to pull it like Wong did early in his career. But I thought the whole weekend for both teams, players were just getting robbed. I mean, you saw Schwarber today hit a 110-mile-an-hour comebacker that almost took off Oviedo's head. It's left and right. People were hitting hard line drives right at people. Rizzo, you mentioned, he got robbed by Wong in the second game today. So it was just a weird, unlucky series for both offensive teams getting robbed by defensive plays.
Yeah, definitely. It's it's baseball, I guess. That's just kind of how it works out sometimes. But I got to say, one thing I was impressed with, and I was nervous a little bit because the Cubs had coming off a series with the Brewers and their bullpen, not quite as dominant as it used to be, but still just one of the best groups of strikeout type pitchers you can run into. I was worried the Cubs get a little swing happy, but I was impressed with the Cardinals bullpen. I liked what I saw of a lot of guys, and obviously there's a little bit of shortcomings. You understand that with how much lack of play they've had, but I was impressed with some of the arms the Cardinals were out there. It seemed like they got the job done, especially in that first doubleheader.
Yeah, and you look at the types of arms that you're seeing. You got names that you somewhat know. You got the John Andler and Giovanni Gallegos from himself last year, but then you really not know because they're highly touted prospect. The Cardinals in the last 5 days have had 10 or 11 major debuts, 7 of which have come from the bullpen. The Cub players. Right side they just have and baseball is a sport where I think the more you see a pitcher, the more comfortable you get. And, I think that Oviedo looks really sharp today. They have guys like Jake as well on the side. Seth Elledge pitched really well, a rookie, and was in the game before the second game ended today. The Cardinals up the first 4 games of the series. They had 10 runners, and not a single one of them scored. So that shows the bullpen's coming in and just getting out of jams. That's their job. They're not allowing runs in that they're coming in to get jams and get out of it. So I was impressed this week as well.
Yeah, exactly that. So kind of going through these first 2 games, obviously the Cardinals win that first doubleheader from today's game 9-3. Alec Mills kind of got beat up quickly in that game. He immediately starts that game off. He was up 0-2. Against Colton Wong, hits him. He gets on base. He immediately goes into the stretch, 3 pitches in. Just didn't look very comfortable throughout, but then he loads the bases up, and Matt Carpenter, even though he made a good pitch, Carp still put up enough on it to get it out. Immediately grand slam at the beginning of the inning. How were you feeling right after that hit? You had to feel at least a little excited, right?
Oh, I was super excited at that moment because that was last night's loss, loading the bases 3 times. And not coming out and runs. So you see the Cardinals able to adjust quickly there. Carpenter is one of the best hitters historically ever with the bases loaded. He came in with a 492 average, up to 500. He struck it, but I mean, he's just one of those guys. One of my friends joked today, said that's why he's playing, is to hit with the bases loaded, because that's how reliable he is. So I was feeling good.
Yeah.
I got to give Fowler Mills. I think that he was able to but he out for the Cubs. As bullpen was back just as the Cardinals was, and for him to get into the fifth, I thought was his grind impressed.
Yeah, that was crazy. That I think a lot of Cubs fans maybe don't appreciate that in the moment because they're just like, oh, get him out of here. This needs to be better. We're losing this game. But it's like this guy was able to go 5 innings and a doubleheader after getting annihilated in the first inning. Like, it's an impressive work. And I think it's a testament to Alec Mills. He's just a guy that throughout the season so far has not given up a lot of hard contact. This is the first time he got hit pretty hard. And even still, it was kind of more so, it felt like he was unraveling a little bit and less about necessarily the Cardinals smashing him, but they still did. But obviously the bats kept showing up throughout that first game. Cardinals take that pretty easily. The second game, though, was interesting because obviously you've got the Cardinals' first year or a rookie pitcher going up. You've got Edward Alzolay for the Cubs, who's played for the Cubs a little bit, but hasn't really shown up a lot. Oviedo looks impressive, though. He's a guy, even in just 5 innings in a debut, the Cubs probably should take advantage of some moments, but even still, to go up 5 innings, give up just 2 runs, struck out a decent amount of bats, he's an impressive arm. Yeah,
I was really impressed with Oviedo today. I think he's just, I know the last number of years is who's the next guy up in the bullpen, and Oviedo's that next guy up. He's another arm that the Cardinals really like to have. You saw it was the second or third inning when he gave up the walks batter. I think it was the second. He was rushing a little bit stretch. I think, first game managers got to him a little bit. And two of the 3 walks that he had, 2 of them, once again, Cardinal pitching kind of shooting themselves in the foot. But I thought it was the cutoff bounce, straight fastball slider. I really like Oviedo. And to the as well, you get Cardinal.
Yeah, Alzolay's an interesting arm. He's definitely got the stuff. And I think a lot of people on Twitter were kind of asking, like, why why isn't he up here now? And I've talked a decent amount with the iCubs beat writers from Des Moines, and Tommy Birch is one of the writers there, and he's talked a lot about him and Colin Ray, two pitchers for the iCubs for a while, and he's always said that Alzolay's always had the talent to be one of the better pitchers in baseball. He's obviously got the stuff for it, but it's when his stuff isn't quite right. He doesn't know really how to manage games quite yet to work himself out of that. And we saw that a little bit today. He worked himself into some jams and got himself out of it. But, young pitchers, I guess. But, gosh, I'm very jealous of the Cardinals group of pitching, especially just like looking at the last 15 years. It feels like, especially for the Cubs, who have just not been able to develop some top tier pitching, really, the Cardinals seem to turn out one every other year. I don't know what they're doing, but I would love for them to come give us some of those pitchers, because you guys always seem to find some really talented arms.
Yeah, it's just like, especially when 2013, whenever they won the pen, it just seemed like everybody that they threw up there was sort of 95 out of the bullpen, just stretched out leagues.
Uh-oh. I think we lost Lucas. I'm sure he'll be back here in a second. But while we're waiting for him, we'll do this. Yeah, obviously, big series for the Cubs and Cardinals in general. This is still one of the Cubs are going to face this team quite a few more times, obviously, despite a 60-game season. But I think it was really clear that neither one of these teams were on their A game. The Cardinals look like a team that hadn't played in a while. The Cubs look like a team that's pretty frustrated offensively. And that just seemed to be kind of the overlaying issue throughout this year. But let's see if we can get Lucas back here as I work through this. But awesome. Hey, Lucas, welcome back.
Hey,
I was just saying it felt like obviously this series pretty big for both teams. It's always big when the Cardinals and Cubs face off with one another, the rivalries here and whatnot. But I thought it was interesting to see kind of the Cardinals look like a team that hadn't played in a little bit, and the Cubs looked exactly like a team that was frustrated offensively, because they have been after being one of the top teams in baseball in terms of scoring runs. But it feels like every time these two face off with each other, it doesn't matter what the score is or what the record is, they always seem to play each other well. And drives me insane, especially when the Cubs are really good and the Cardinals might be scuffling a little bit. We'll always seem to lose 2 of 3 or 3 of 4 in a series. But I don't know. I always enjoy these series. I don't know about you. What are do you have any, favorite Cardinal Cubs series moments?
Well, one of my favorite ones happened last September when the Cardinals swept the Cubs at Wrigley Field. I had to bring it up. Dan McLaughlin, play-by-play for the Cardinals, called it the Wrigley Field Massacre. Love that title. But no, my twin brother actually is a Cub fan, so we've had some good moments over the years. One of my favorite ones, I used to keep score, like a paper scorebook while watching the game. And in 2011, when Albert hit back-to-back home runs, I was keeping score for back-to-back walk-off home runs on different days against the Cub. I was keeping score at that game, or watching those games, and that's one of my top ones there, because I just love Albert. But yeah, that and Carpenter last year. But yeah, God. What about you? You got any favorite ones?
There's a lot of really bad Cardinal memories I have last year, especially that weekend. I just couldn't believe that Saturday game where the Cubs had just been awful throughout this game, somehow come back and score 3 runs and are now up 2 runs. Kimbrel comes in and immediately first 2 pitches he throws are gone. And I was just like, we are not good. We are not good at baseball. That's what I've confirmed here. But if I had to remember a specific Cardinal moment, it's got to be the Cubs clinching the playoffs in the division. I think it was back in 2018 or it was 2017. After they won the World Series, they clinched in St. Louis, and that was pretty cool. Even though the game itself didn't matter, it was just kind of cool to win it in St. Louis. So that was definitely a cool memory. And there's a lot of memories I have of Albert Pujols just annihilating the Cubs.
Oh my goodness, yeah, those go back pretty far. I remember he always hit Dempster pretty well. I always liked it when he and Dempster.
Oh my God, Dempster, Ted Lilly, he hit Zambrano. It didn't matter who he always seemed to I don't know how, but the Cubs would always face off with him. And Bob Howery was a reliever for the Cubs for a while, and he was batting I think literally 500 against him. What are we doing here? But obviously that big series. The NL Central itself this year is still kind of open for discussion. I know the
absolutely.
Brewers are starting to get into the mix of things. The Cardinals have been in second place despite not really playing any games in a while. But I guess now we've got a better idea of what some of these teams are looking like for the Brewers, the Reds, the Cubs, and Cardinals. I guess what's your take on this division? Do you see things kind of leveling out here, or do you see a team taking advantage of one another?
I mean, going into this season, I think the only team that didn't have a shot whatsoever was Pittsburgh.
Right.
That's proven to be true. I was shocked at the poor start that Cincinnati had, and the Cubs really had an exceptional start. I mean, they're kind of scuffling a little bit here of late, but I just think that for the Cubs to be as good as they are, with as bad as their bullpen's been, with as much as Baez and Contreras are struggling, that scares me. Because what Baez have? 2 hits in this series, 3 hits maybe. I think he came in 1 for 22. So I mean, if he's mediocre this series, the Cubs sweep. If Contreras is mediocre this series, the Cubs sweep. I don't think there's a question about that. So I think if the Cubs can get Baez and Contreras going, I just don't see the Cardinals or Brewers being able to catch up. Because Cardinals, as much pitching depth as we talked about, they just don't have the offense that Chicago has. I don't know what you think, but I just don't think that anybody can catch Chicago if Baez gets going.
Yeah, that's really the thing. It feels like the rest of the lineup has kind of held it together for a little bit, while guys like Baez and Contreras and obviously Chris Bryant's been hurt a little bit too. So those 3 guys not hitting has been rough. But then you have guys like Jason Kipnis. I think he's got like a weighted runs creation of like 167 on the season, just like bonkers numbers, like numbers that won't be sustained. But it's been helping at least to sustain, while like guys like I think Baez, like you said, he came in for like 1 for 22. I think he's now 3 for 29 or something. He's probably a little bit more than that now. But just a rough stretch. And you could see it in his face. He's really frustrated. But in terms of this division, if the Cubs can get their offense, or at least some of their better players going more consistently, I don't know. I mean, the Cardinals have a really pesky offense a lot, especially with Edman and Wong at the top. And then you've got Goldschmidt and then immediately Matt Carpenter, both RBI machines. Dexter Fowler's been very good for the Cardinals. He's still I think he's batting over 300. Yeah, he's a guy. This year. Caveat. It's been rough. I love Dexter Fowler. He's always been one of my favorite Cubs. But when I saw him get that money from St. Louis, I was like, good for him. But man, I don't know why they gave him that much.
Yeah, I've always loved Dexter as a person. I just think he's had just a couple of statistically awful years. Like there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. But I agree. He's been doing well this year for sure.
Yeah, no, there's definitely. I mean, you guys definitely have some bats, but looking at, I think we're all kind of surprised Cincinnati hasn't done better, especially with their rotation is incredible. And Nick Castellanos was off to such a hot start after maybe like a slow 2 games,
right?
But yeah, he's incredible. Obviously, Eugenio Suarez is great too in that Reds lineup. Him. Yeah, Gino's cool. You should talk. Jeff Carr will tell you so many cool Gino stories. You have to have him on your show sometime. The Locked On Reds host, but. Sure. Yeah, I mean, this division is wide open, I think. Even the Brewers, who, even just facing them, they took 3 or 4 from the Cubs, and no reason to other than the Cubs going down. But the Brewers have pitching, in their bullpen at least, and they've got bats that step up. So, I mean, this division is so weird because, I don't think anyone's going to run away with it. And the Cubs, who had such a massive lead, I just knew they were going to find a way to to not continue to do that. But looking through, I guess, the upcoming weeks here for the Cardinals, I guess, what are some of the things you're hoping to see improvement with after this so-so series with the Cubs?
Yeah, I'd like to see improvement on situational hitting. I thought they did a great job of it in the second game today. Kisner had the sacrifice fly to get them within 1. Miller had a great at-bat to go with the opposite field hit there. But in yesterday's game, the only 9-inning game, they were 2 for 9 with runners in scoring position. We talked about it a little bit earlier. Bases loaded 3 times, and they didn't score. One of them with nobody out, which is just beyond mind-boggling to me how that happens as a major league offense. But just little things, situational hitting. And part of that is, not playing in 17 days. I'm not making excuses because it's the Cardinals' fault or, whatever. But I just think that, situational hitting can get a little bit better. And I'm really pumped for whenever we can get these starters stretched out to go regular 5, 6, 7 innings. That bullpen's going to be lights out because you can call on anybody. But with the Cubs, with their bullpen, it seems like it's been getting better over the last couple of weeks or last couple of days. Am I crazy in saying that? It feels like they've gotten better.
No, they definitely have actually. They're I think they're a top 10 group actually from August on. Since that rough start in July where they had just a comically ridiculous ERA, 9 or something like that, just insane. But it was even crazier though too. Is like despite them being so bad, they hadn't been charged with a loss yet up until I think maybe this week with the Brewers. But yeah, it's gotten a lot better. Ross is definitely kind of playing around with guys. Ryan Tapira has been really impressive. I think he's got 14 strikeouts, leading the way in the bullpen. Jeremy Jeffers has yet to give up a. I mean, I guess he did technically today give up a run, but before that he had a 0.000 ERA. So the bullpen's figuring things out. Kimbrel looked a lot better today.
Oh yeah.
And his stuff has gotten better throughout his starts. I'm hoping he's figuring things out. I know beginning of the season, they really wanted him to try and throw his changeup just to get a third pitch in the mix. But it felt like his changeup grip was messing with his fastball grip. And I think just having that third pitch was just too much for him. So they said, you know what, you've got a lot going on. Figure out your fastball, figure out your knuckleball, and hopefully that goes from there. And it seems like simplifying things for him has kind of helped him get into a better spot. I still don't know if I want him as my closer quite yet. I think I need to see some more outings, and I'm sure David Ross feels the same way. But yeah, this bullpen is surprisingly coming together. They found some arms, and hopefully they can find a lefty reliever. Kyle Ryan's been pretty rough. He's still a guy that'll probably be on this roster for the rest of the season and so on and so forth. But he's had a rough start to the season. It's another lefty reliever, but even taking a look at, I know it's probably still a little too early and tough to really get an idea of what the landscape's going to look like, but the trade deadline, is there any, I mean, I don't think there's any names you can really throw out there because who knows who's available, but if there was like one piece you were looking for, I guess, what's that mold of the guy you think the Cardinals are missing?
See, that's interesting for the Cardinals because, they've only played like 13 games at this point.
Right.
So I think like if you're looking for somebody, my mind immediately jumps to an outfield bat, but also I want to give Carlson a little bit more time to really get his feet wet in the major leagues. I think the Cardinals have plenty of arms to get them through, especially with how often I feel like after every game, after every inning, there's a roster transaction for the Cardinals. But I don't really know I don't think the Cardinals make any moves at the deadline. I really don't, just because of the lack of games. And even if they did play regular season, you never know how things are going to look out. But I think Mozeliak is pretty content with the team he has in the field. Whether that's a correct assumption of the team is up for debate, I think. But I think he's pretty content. I don't think he's making any moves. I'm guessing you're going to look for a bullpen piece if you could. I could be wrong, but that's what my guess would be.
We're definitely going to try and probably find a lefty reliever if it's possible. The name I've kind of floated out there on the podcast last couple of days is Tony Watson. Okay. He's a guy that was with the Cubs for a little bit too, but he's not necessarily great. I think he's 35. He's someone the team would probably be okay with moving on from, but you just never know because just right now, conceivably every team but the Red Sox maybe right now could still have a real shot at making that second playoff spot. So it's tough to figure out what the world's going to look like in terms of trades and with everything going on in COVID. I can't see too many teams going out and spending a lot of money. So I think it'll be a lot of this guy got designated for assignment, so they're picking him up here, sort of thing. But
sure, and just with you saw the Reds get COVID last week as well. So I just think that. People are kind of, okay, the Cardinals and Marlins have calmed down, but the COVID thing can happen to anybody. I mean, so I just think that teams are still in an uncertain, unwatered territories of that. But before we wrap it up or whatever, I just want to get your take on Giovanni Gallegos in that seventh inning. He comes in with one. Hindsight's 2020. We were talking off here before we started. He gets two strikes on David Bodie. He's one of the more clutch players in the game. And I was literally sitting on my couch myself, literally saying, slider in the dirt, slider in the dirt, slider in the dirt. Throws him a fastball, and Bodie makes him pay. What do you think of that situation?
If you're David Bodie, you have to be praying for a fastball there because that guy's sliders would just wipe out crazy good. And so I understand maybe not wanting to go with it if he was worried about control issues. With bases loaded, you obviously don't want to let the run in on a pass ball, but you also don't want to serve up David Bodie a fastball again, especially after you threw it twice. So I didn't understand it. That being said, had he located that pitch maybe a little bit higher or more inside, he probably breaks his bat. He fouls the ball. It's fine. But Bodie was able to muscle it out there. And like you said, he's a guy that, just a couple of days ago hit a 3-run shot when the Cubs had no business winning that game. he just does things like that, which is great. David Bodie is such a weird guy, though, because he's a really nice person, but he's such a weird player because he always seems to do these crazy extravagant things in these big moments, like hitting that home run against the Nationals we talked about a couple of years ago, or making some insane play in the field where like you're just like, I didn't know David Bodie could make a play like that. But then he has like a routine double play that he'll kick over, or like he just doesn't put his glove down far enough and charges the ball and misses it. And it's just kind of those little things that it doesn't quite work out. But then these insane plays where he just, he rips an RBI single on an 0-2 count. Like it's just very David Bodie. But yeah, I could not for the life of me figure out why Gallegos did not try and go with at least a breaking ball changeup. I don't know. Like, I mean, you've got one of the best sliders in baseball. Why are you not throwing that pitch? So.
Oh, absolutely. And you mentioned, if he happens to get that fastball by, then you go slider. But I mean, why wait? I mean, slider's your best pitch there. And then, I just didn't understand it.
And especially because you've thrown it twice already, and you're up 0-2.
Exactly.
I get, I don't know. He must have been really confident in the pitch.
I guess,
I guess one last question for you before I let you go. Have you noticed any differences behind the plate without Yadi or Molina? Has there been any kind of like, if Yadi was there, that would have been a play he made, or like, something like that?
I'll tell you, if Yadi's behind the plate, he probably calls for a slider. No disrespect to Kisner. I love what Kisner's doing, but no, I mean, not really anything like that jumps out at me. I mean, I think other than pitch calling and pitch framing, I think that Kisner could work on, because Kisner threw 2 guys out yesterday, the day before, whenever that was, and he made it look good. Framing, I think Kisner doesn't have the softest hands back there. But other than that, I think Kisner's done a nice job, and same thing with Wieters behind the plate. But speaking of pitch framing, just real quick, I think what Carantini and Contreras do as pitch framers, where they bring the ball right back to the middle of the zone. It's such little league, and I think it's annoying that it works. I don't know. Maybe that's just being mad at a Cub player. But that's just me.
No, I like, and Caratini does it more than I think anyone I've seen in a while. Yeah. But yeah, some of that, and especially it doesn't help now too that they've got the zone on all broadcasts, so you just see like how far that ball was out and how quickly it's like he didn't throw. That's not in the middle of the plate. Like, come on.
No.
But he, I will give Wilson credit. He was one of the worst framing catchers in baseball just 2 years ago. So for him to even become close to league average is really impressive. But Vic Carantini, it feels like when like someone would catch a ball on the outside and hold the glove like this instead of like holding it down. It's like what's going on? But
it's not even the fact that they do it, but it's just the fact that it works is really what the boring part is.
Yeah. It makes you really want robot umps, but
right. Oh, the umpire today in the second game, I thought he was so inconsistent too. I thought he was bad. And I'm an umpire myself, so I try not to get on him too much, but I just thought that he had some questionable strikes for sure.
Yeah, there was on both sides too, definitely.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, well, Lucas, it was awesome jumping you on. If you guys have not checked out Lucas, you can follow him on Twitter at LJ Fastball, and make sure you're checking out Locked On Cardinals on Twitter at Locked On Cardinals, daily podcast with Lucas. I am, of course, Sean Sears. You can follow me on Twitter at Sean Sears. It's at the bottom of our screen. I don't know why I'm telling you these things, but you can find Locked On Cubs on Twitter at Locked On Cubs. But any parting shots you want to throw out here, Lucas, before we wrap up?
Well, I just think it was a lot of baseball to talk about. I enjoyed talking with you. I appreciate it. Hopefully we can do live shows more often. And I just think we're in with how quickly this division can change with Cardinals playing 2 games in a row on certain days. I think we're in for an exciting finish to the 2020 season. And it'll be interesting to see if the Cardinals only get 58 games in as to how they do the playoffs. That's a fascinating point. Hopefully we don't have to deal with it, but I'm thinking we will. But other than that, I enjoyed talking with you. It was a good time.
Yeah, thanks, Lucas. It was a fun time. We'll set up another time to do this once the Cubs and Cardinals face off once again.